Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CounterSketch webinar. My name is Allison Dronett, Customer Experience Manager here at Stellar, and today we have a very special guest, Peter, from Peter Indorf Designs. So welcome, Peter.
Allison, it's great to be here, and I'm glad we have some folks that we can share some knowledge about CounterSketch with today.
Absolutely. So Peter, tell us a little bit about your story and experience in the trade.
Sure. So I was very fortunate. I found my calling to be a jeweler when I was about 19. I was kind of wandering around. I was always interested in art and creativity, but never really had much education. I probably had ADHD, and I really never did very well in school. But I don't know, I took to jewelry really quick. Somebody showed me a couple of things, and I started to make some handmade jewelry, and I had no trouble selling it. I was living in California at the time, and my first workshop was in the back of a panel truck, and it was kind of fun. And that lasted a couple of years. And then I ended up back in Connecticut, where I was from, and I was asked to be a resident jeweler at a craft gallery called Old Ways, and that was in around 1972. And I worked there for a few years as a subcontractor, and then I opened up my own shop in 1975. And I quickly realized that I needed some education and knowledge about the jewelry business. So I went to GIA in Santa Monica and did jewelry design in residence, and learned how to do the drawing and painting style that they teach there. And I ended up doing, well, I can just turn the screen and you can see it, like some of these. Can you see that images on the wall, Allison? See, some of those images there are things that I hand draw or do on CAD. I expanded my operations as a fine jeweler. I got my graduate gemologist degree and ended up getting affiliated with the American Gem Society, and I became a certified gemologist appraiser with a gem lab. Mid-'80s, I got my first computer and I started doing desktop publishing, and never really looked back. I've always been interested in computer technology. We got Matrix in the mid-'90s, and I went to Stellar to learn it with my brother, and I quickly realized that he had more time to do that than I did, so he kind of focused in on that, and I kind of let it slide, although I am learning it again. Over that period of time, we ended up expanding to 3 stores, New Haven, Madison, and Old Saybrook. 2013, I got my first CounterSketch license and went to Lafayette again to learn how to use it. And we introduced it into our stores. 2015 and 16, I decided to wrap up my retail operations in Connecticut, and I moved to Florida to get remarried. And now I set myself up as a private jeweler in an office. And CounterSketch became a real priority for me to learn to be self-sufficient and successful, because I saw that I could do pretty much anything that my brother could do in Matrix, I could do in CounterSketch. So that was pretty awesome. So and when you put the team together that Stellar offers with their validators and with their CAM services, it's a really great, for me, it's perfect. I mean, I'm a one-man shop, and I look much bigger. So
that's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about your business model?
Sure. So I'm a private jeweler by appointment. Like I said, I work out of an office building. I'm sitting right now in my showroom conference room, but I also have an additional workshop space, gem lab, and office in the back. And I think later on we have some pictures we'll show of that. I use my website as my store for online sales and also as inspiration. I use social media very intensively. I'm on Instagram and Facebook all the time, making posts. And the renders that you can do in CounterSketch are amazing. I mean, you'll see some a little later. I mean, the hands look almost real. CounterSketch provides virtual inventory for me too, so it helps to keep my inventory low. I can look like a big player on my website with CounterSketch at my side. Most of my business is custom design. I try to keep a low overhead, no employees, just subcontractors. But I offer, engagement rings. We sell diamonds and precious stones. We make wedding bands. We reset clients' gems, restoration of family treasures. We do some handmade jewelry and offer appraisal services.
That's fantastic. So Peter, I know you mentioned, you use CounterSketch, you have Matrix also in the store. Tell us how CounterSketch really helps you every day.
Sure.
And how is that learning curve as well?
Yeah, CounterSketch is, I find, once you get over, there's a short but steep learning curve. And once you get used to it, it's really pretty fast. I mean, I can do designs, if you use the stock sketch it, stock portfolio like that's on the screen right now, you can pull up any one of those rings and customize it in front of a customer in no time. And it's pretty easy to use. I typically, though, use the more complex area. I use user parts, and I'm using the freehand and all that. So it just helps me to build my virtual inventory. I can use CounterSketch for quick quoting. Like I can easily get a call for something and whip out CounterSketch, do a quick render of what I'm doing. I can quote it with Stellar's online resources and present a very professional looking proposal to a client very quickly. And the way it helps me every day is, work out designs, and I'm going to show you some examples of how I do that. Changes and modifications to design are very easy. I also use the renders in addition to proposals. I use it in marketing materials, my website, blogs, social media posts, and more. I use CounterSketch for custom design projects, but also for stock projects too, and I'll show you some of those later too. And like I said, it makes me look much bigger business than I actually am. Some of the CounterSketch advantages is that they have a huge, vast library of designs and parts. You can make almost anything. And Stellar has these great guys that are validators that help you to make sure your file is successful, so you get what you thought you wanted. For those of you maybe that aren't bench jewelers, they help to keep you from making mistakes. For me, as I was a bench jeweler first, I understand how to put things together, and using the parts and things like that in CounterSketch is just like building it on the bench. I have a, yeah, so.
That's absolutely fantastic. Would you like to show us some of your design work?
Yeah, well, I will in just a second.
Okay.
But I wanted to give a plug to the free webinars that Heather Kutzman does. Absolutely. Even though, I can kind of consider myself a power CounterSketch user, I still, every month when she does these seminars, I always attend, and I always learn something. And I urge you to do the lessons and follow along. So if you want to give me the screen now, I'll share with you when I'm okay. All right, so this is some of my EVA collection, and I'm going to show a little bit on how I make some of these. Some are cast, some are better handmade. So I'm going to show how we make the bands and how we make and save bezels and prong settings and then put together in CounterSketch with variations. You can use this to make an entire line for your store. It's very simple. You can work out issues in CounterSketch rather than making mistakes in precious metals. You can change the size and the shape and the colors of all the gems and placements, and it's a great way to show even your jewelers what you're up to, what you want, even if it's not something that Stellar is going to make. This is a recent custom design that I just closed last Saturday, and it's a pink tourmaline, blue diamonds, white diamonds, pink gold, and worked hard on this. This particular setting right here, this sort of tulip setting, doesn't exist in the library, and I had a double of a time trying to figure out how to make it. So I tried a few different things, and I'm going to show that again a little bit more, how we did that. And the last thing I want to really focus on today is rendering, how to render for a consistent look, how to position it, what resolution to use, how to set the hand up. And this is a nice example of a ring that we did recently for someone. The other aspect is there's a back end to this on how I actually use the renders. I don't know if you can see it, but over here on my screen, I have a CSS render shortcut. So what I do is when I output my files in CounterSketch, I set it up so that the renders, they pop right in this folder. So for example, here is a render of a necklace we did recently. And I sent that to Stellar with my gems, and this is what they gave me. And it came out really, really beautiful.
That is absolutely gorgeous, Peter.
The purple, sapphire, rubies, sapphire, diamond, and gold. And
Very
then,
beautiful.
so now that's that. And let's close this up. I'm going to pop over now to, I wanted to just pop over here real quick because I wanted to show, this is, these are some more designs from this Eva collection that I wanted to show you. And it just gives you an idea of what you can actually produce, all with the same little library of things that you can make. You can just, there's endless variations. You know, you can change the stone colors, you know, put it on a hand, just the color, and you can play with color, and you can just have a blast. I mean, I have there's some designs I was showing Allison yesterday, they probably have 50 designs that are all based on the same thing, but you change the width, size, the shape of the stones, the metal color, and so this also is, this is some other views of that particular ring. And we're going to get into this in CounterSketch in just a second. So that's that. So let's open up CounterSketch now. Okay, so we're going to start with the sample setting. So this is the simplified version of the ring I just showed you on the screen. Okay, so as you can see, it's got that tulip style setting. And if you look around the parts, you're going to see that there isn't really anything like it. Maybe in, you know, there's something sort of close in here. I'm not sure exactly where it is. Let's see. Yeah, well, some of the, like this part right here, I tried using this as a base to then lay wires over, and then I was going to make it go away. But that didn't work either, so I decided to try something else. And what I did is, I'm going to show you here. So if I take off the quad on this, you'll see what the element is, and I'll get rid of the gem too. So it's really basically just a simple U-bend, and where I got that from was over here. And wire, ropes, and knots, this part right here. I'm just going to pull it over here, and so we can see it. If you hold down the shift, you get it to 90 degrees. So if you can kind of see, let's see, I'm going to turn this a little bit like this so that we can kind of see it the same. So you can see that this is too heavy, so I'm going to get rid of the we're going to change it to a thinner piece. I found that that this shape right here was pretty good, and then we can change the width to get it so that it's the size of the stone. You can also, once you get the stone in there, you can adjust the height. So the tricky, now the real tricky part is, this is a tricky bend right here. It's got to be just right. So I had to do a lot of trial and error with that, but I'm going to show you the trick I came up with. So if you take it on the side, now you got to kind of zoom in. It doesn't come out exactly the way it's supposed to. So what you end up doing is you have to take and drag these little balls. You see there's a ball, whoop, that's not, let's go back. You always have this handy undo. So I'm going to bring this back down. It's this one we have to take. See that there's another ball hiding underneath that. Oh. We don't want that either. Let's see. You got to light it up. There you go. So the way this bending works is it's going to bend from this point, and then this is your lever. So if you grab the ball here, you can see that you can get that nice bend. If I was to do this, then you get a completely different bend. Or if you do this one, which is handy sometimes as well, it just does that. But we're going to go back to just what we need, which is this one. So I'm going to bend this into, it's about, imagine half a marquee, and that should be about right. So now there's your basic shape, as you can see it. And when it has to be in the center for the quad to work. So this is in the center. So we're going to leave it there. I'm going to hide my control panel so I can see. Okay. So I'm going to turn back on now my quad, and you'll see how that all works together. So, but that's essentially how you would create that part. Now, there's something else that you can do that's pretty awesome too in CounterSketch, and that is you can save this part. Now that you got all that time and energy, so I'm going to hide that part. We don't need that right now. So I am going to highlight this, and I'm going to save this to my user parts. And I'm going to call it, just for example, I'm going to call it a test setting. Okay. When I submit it, now when I go to user parts again, let's see. Well, there it is, but that was from another. Let's see, where did it go? Here it is. So there's my part right here. I'm going to get rid of it though, because I've already got it. But I wanted to just share it with you how you do that. But you can set up all kinds of, you can save ring shanks, you can save all kinds of different things that come in handy that maybe you put some time and energy into building, and you can save it here and you can call it up again. Sometimes when I'm working on a complex project, like I'll show you in a minute, we'll do some others. Okay, so let's take a quick look. So I have, okay, so we're going to go now to, let's start a new session. Whoop. Okay. I'm going to start a new session. I'm not going to save it. So this was a variation on that EVA collection that I had given you some examples of earlier. These are some simple gold bands with some gemstones, which are actually a project I'm working on right now. And even though I'm not going to have these rings cast, and I'll explain why in just a second, it's still very handy to lay these things out in CounterSketch so that you can visualize what you're trying to accomplish, and also so you can print out a nice render of this and you can put it in the job bag so that your jeweler understands completely what you want, rather than just some quick chicken scratch on an envelope. And I know you're all guilty of that if you work in a store. So I'm going to just, if you look down the bottom here, you can see that there's a whole endless slew of parts here. And what I did first was, this was my first one. And what I basically did was I saved it to my parts folder. And it's right here. So if I double click that, we'll get another one that'll come out on the screen right to the size. So here it is. So now, if I want to, say I want to do another ring, very, very quickly and simply, I have a variety of settings in here, and there's one in particular I'm looking for, which is this 5mm low base. CounterSketch makes it very simple to put these things together. Between the arrows to make sure you got everything lined up. And sometimes I like to use this too, just to keep it square. I have to admit, there's one tool here. I don't understand this global rotation. I never seem to use that. I guess I'm gonna have to talk to Heather about what that's about at some point. So Heather, if you're listening, this is something I'll put on my list, how we can use that. So here we go now. So we're gonna I'm gonna turn this into a green garnet because I think green garnets are pretty. So I'm gonna select it, choose it, and apply. And there's my green garnet. So now, let's take a quick look. So there's my classic ring. I think I want to put some, let's put some side stones on this. Maybe we'll put, so we can do that a couple of ways. You can choose the stone that I already have, which I'm going to show you first how to do that. We'll duplicate it, and it'll pop up in just a second. There it is. As you can see, it's clear. So now it's obviously the wrong direction. And let's change the size. So we've got, let's make it 3.5. Okay, that seems like a good proportion. We'll tuck it in there. So one of the things that's interesting, this center point right here, when you rotate these, if you sort of aim it toward the center point, you're going to be pretty in a pretty good spot. Let's see here, a little close. And once you get it where you want it, let's see, is that touching enough? So it might be nice if these prong bases are touching a little bit more, just a little contact. There we go. However, it looks like it's a little low. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to tweak the height of the stone just a little bit. Let's take a look. When you make the stone larger or higher or lower, it has an interesting, it does it on both dimensions, the bottom and the top. So that looks better to me. Now, one thing, when this ring is done, these Stellar's validators will punch holes in these settings so that you won't have that wire going through anymore. So now that I've got the setting that I like, I'm going to just simply mirror it to the other side. Bingo. So now I have a beautiful little 3-stone ring. If I save that, nice addition to that collection. Now, if I wanted to, let's see, yeah, I guess that's enough for this right now. We're gonna go back to CounterSketch in a moment, but I wanted to just run through a few rendering because we're going to be talking about rendering next. So these are some renders that I'll do, showing both tabletop and with on hand. Now these are images that I saved to 1080 pixels on each side, so they're square, and they present themselves very nicely on the screen. Now this is, I have to give hats off to Heather. This was one of the practice sessions we did on one of her seminars a couple months ago. I thought it was kind of fun. And it shows on the hand. This is the render for some earrings that I sent Stellar the Stones, and they produced these. We saw that earlier. So this is one of my quick kind of sketches for my Oceana collection. So I was trying to figure out how can I make that in CounterSketch. So this is how I did it. I started with, this is using polar array. So I started with the center. Then these pieces right here are made out of a piece of wire. There's two kinds of wire you have in your user parts. Excuse me. There's two parts, two kind of wires. There's one that I used here, which gives you the ability to change the dimensionality and the width of the wire at the endpoints and in the middle. And then you can also figure out where you want the middle to be. So I was able to slide the middle down here, and I got a really nice, graceful shape. The balls are pretty easy to do. You know, you make one ball and you array it around. Same thing with this. You array this around. And that's something else that we can cover some other time. The tricky part for me was to create this outer ribbon of gold. So the way I did that was I started with a piece of wire and I made a long piece. I flattened it with the dimensionality that you can do. And then I do, you know, as I bent that setting, so I set the center point right here, and I was able to take the long strip and give it a nice uniform bend all the way around. So a nice parallel bend. It was a little tricky to do. And then you can, if you look closely, you can sort of see that there's a joint here and here. So then once I had this piece done and arrayed it, then I went and I did one of these little curves, and then I arrayed that as well, and it all kind of came together. And then the settings, the three-pronged settings, just looked like that's what should be there. So that's what I went with. So that's the white gold and sapphire. Here's the yellow gold and ruby. And again, it's so simple. Once you've got your design, change the color, change the gems, makes it really simple. Here it is, yellow with white diamond. And then this next design is just something that I just did as an exercise just to see how far I could push CounterSketch. You know, how I could actually make this. I'm a musician as well as a jeweler. And so there was a series of music-oriented things I did. I even did a sword too. It was kind of fun. But I even got the strings. You know, you got the shape. This looks like Paul McCartney's guitar to me.
That looks fantastic, Peter. I love that. How long did it take you to do that?
A couple hours maybe.
A couple hours.
Yeah, it wasn't too crazy. You know, there was a basic shape. I had to. I'm trying to think how I put this together. I'd have to go open the file again and look, but it's all like just like this is pieces of wire, you know, little balls, you know, like the edge is just you know, these are like different, like you do one shape and you mirror it. This top and bottom shape though are unique. The strings were really nothing more than, you know, there's a way you can you can do like the surface. So so I had to have like a little open space right there just to kind of, I don't know, see. I don't know. It was fun. And then this was I had this client that wanted a rainbow ring with all the different gemstones in it, so that was kind of fun. And then this is how it looked on a hand. I had another client that wanted a Jerusalem cross with diamonds and sapphires, and so I designed it once. It wasn't quite right, so we redid it, did it again, and then the second time it came out perfect. So this is actually how it looked, and this was all done in Lafayette at Stellar's shop.
So Peter, I do have another question for you. So it seems like from these designs that you primarily use pretty much all freehand. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. There are times when I'll start, if I can, if I can start with something that's there. It's just that I try to be a creative jeweler and not do what everybody else is doing. So so I find that I tend to go to user parts and more often than freehand. So like this was all built in freehand, 6-carat sapphires. And it gives you the ability, what I'm not showing you here is the 10 variations I came up with in order to close this job. I mean, it's one of the things that the power of CounterSketch is that you can afford to take the time it takes to make sure that the client is like thrilled with the design, because you want to make sure that it looks as good or better when they open up the package. And I have a very high success rate. It's very, very rare that I have a problem with a custom design. And it's because I make sure that I take as much time and I make sure that people are as comfortable as they can be with, we sometimes will send photo, because I'm doing this for people. This guy was in New Jersey and I'm in Florida. He spends $35,000 on a necklace without sight unseen. So now I will say that we have a track record. I've done things for him before, so he understands the kind of quality that I do and so on and so forth. But anyway, that's that. I wish I had a finished piece. Somehow I forgot to get it. Now here's another Heather project we did together. She did this on one of her sessions, and I thought it was kind of fun. This is, now Allie, you can talk about this ring a little bit because I think this is your favorite one of mine, right?
I was gonna say that is my favorite ring. I just love the scroll work on it, the stones, and how if I wanted to change the color of the stones, we could do it. It's such a beautiful piece.
And this is how it actually came out. And again,
and that render is gorgeous.
Yeah, the render came out good. And I think, like the garnet comes out really well in the render, aquamarine not so much, but hopefully. This is another idea that I had recently, which I ended up changing the stone color in the final ring, but this is how it looked.
That is super cool.
Yeah, I wish the picture was a little better, but anyway. And then this is a design that we did in CounterSketch too, and that's how it came out. And then I was just having fun. This is a little older design, but I was having fun with creating this opening where I could really make a dazzling ring. And then I decided also, well, you can also do it in colors. So I would take and almost make them like flowers and have like the green centers and the purple around it, and then infill it with yellow diamonds. This is a very popular trend now. Like little princess bands, where you start with a very simple center stone. Of course, this isn't so simple. This was a customer brought me a sunstone to set, which is probably a little fragile, but what are you going to do? That's what they want. So then this was how it looked on the hand.
That's another one of my favorites, Peter. It looks
Yeah.
like a princess ring.
So do you like this? See, now what's interesting about this ring is I didn't make it symmetrical, because you got a pear shape here. So on this side I put a round stone, and on the other side I kind of accentuated it with the marquee in the round, and it has the mill graining. And then this one has a completely different kind of band, but I think it all works together. It's just sort of it has kind of an interesting look, I think, to it. I'm glad you like that.
And that's the beauty of CounterSketch, right? Because you can make those changes and they can see the different changes with the click of a button. So I love it.
Now this ring was this is a lotus ring. Now I was able to use, Stellar has this flower in its library. So I was able to scale it up and put a stone in there and then make the prongs actually just like the petals. And then I used this over here, small, like this all was in platinum except for this side was 18 karat on either side. And so then we put green garnets, and this is actually how the photograph came out. And again, Stellar did a fantastic job with the output. And this is an example of what you can do in here with bas relief. Sometimes you get calls for that. You can create a channel effect, and you can lay in there and bend like the scrolls to fit in there nicely, and it looks pretty sweet. And then last but not least, this is I've always done a lot with bezels, and I just thought that this was kind of fun just to have a simple ring, but then just that one little bezel set ruby baguette on the side, just to have a kind of a cool thing. So we're going to jump back over to CounterSketch again. And I wanted to just talk a little bit, just for a second, about this program I'm in right now. I don't know if I remember going to a seminar. I used the Edge by Abbott Jewelry Systems. That's right here. And when I was at one of their management seminars, the presenter, David Brown, I noticed was using this this program called Evernote. And this was the best thing I got out of the whole conference, because I've used it very intensively. I mean, you can just see, I mean, I keep all my folders and files in here. And if I ever have any problems, everything is migrated to every device I use. It's cross-platform. So if I take my renders and I put them over here in my custom design folder, I can keep all my stuff together, and it keeps everything really super organized. I also do it for, this is for CounterSketch and for my Matrix Gold folders. Like, for example, I'm making this right now. And even though I'm not, and I ended up doing that actually in Matrix. This is in CounterSketch, but I just decided to try it in Matrix. So this is, for those of you who are interested, check out Evernote. It's not free, unfortunately, but it's well worth it. And for me, I used it intensively when I was living in Florida, and I still had a store in Connecticut, because I would use this to get all my invoices and prove them and send them off to the bookkeeper. So it was actually pretty cool. But now I use it mostly for design. So let's close that up, and let's pop back over to CounterSketch. And we're going to do, let's do some renders here. Let's just take a quick look here. No, let's go back here. You like that ring, Allie. So let's take a look at this ring. Let's open this ring up in CounterSketch, and let's see what we can do for rendering. I'll share with you the setup that I use to get a consistent look. You should experiment with the CounterSketch rendering engine and see what you like the best, what appeals to you, because there's quite a lot of ways you can make this very unique. So here's your basic ring. So now if you go over to this here, I typically use the Instagram 1080 by 1080. It's just I like the square format. It fits in a lot of things. It fits on my website nice. You have all of these different things you can do. I just find a lot of them are more over the top. I just like the simple rendering. And I also, for the same reason, I like this one here, which is white reflective. So that way you get a little bit of, you know, it's like being on a piece of white plastic. You know, there's other ways of doing it too, but I've just settled in on that one. I like the studio lighting. Here's where you can save your renders to a folder. So what you do is you browse here and then you just choose the folder that you want. And then you set it as default. Now, if I was to, I'm not going to render this yet. I'm going to put my, let's try the hand. Okay, so the hand is actually pretty sweet. I wish they had ears and necks too, but they don't have that yet. So you can move this all around. What I typically like to do is I try to make the hand about the size of a hand so that you can really get a good idea. Because this is like a, you know how, for me, like when I'm dealing with people all across the country, they can't try on my design. You know, I'm not sitting in front of them so they can lay the stones on their finger. So I have to help them to understand what it's going to be like. So maybe that's a little too small, about here. Okay. So now you can try different skin tones. Sometimes like the warmer skin tones look really good. You can change where on the finger the ring is going right here. I tend to like it down farther. You can also change the finger placement. You want it on the middle finger? You can put it there. Maybe let's leave it, let's render it there. That's kind of fun. You can change the nail color. I think they need to update the colors though. What do you think, Allie? You probably don't.
It's always good to have a refresh, and I'll definitely put your feedback in there for sure.
Yeah, I think we need some new nail colors. You gotta get some of the gals from the office that wear polish. Okay, so here we go. So let's do that one right there. So now you can if you hold down your shift key and then you right click, you can adjust this right where you want it because you want it smack in the middle. And then let's see. I have to do this so I can render. Otherwise I can't see my screen.
So
Allie,
Peter.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you're using CounterSketch for people all around the United States. So they're not coming necessarily in your showroom. So that's very awesome how you can, you know, sell with just a render and sell communication back and forth.
Yeah, well, I do. Like, I'll take pictures as gemstones. So let me pop this back. So there's my render.
It looks great.
Yeah. So then when you're done, you just go back to the hand and remove it, and then you're back to where you were. So if you want to play with, can I move my? Here we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, because that little control panel was right over my my render. Okay. So I'm pretty much done now. Is there any questions that I'd be happy to answer?
Hey Peter, could you describe your showroom? I'm going to go ahead and get back on my screen, and you can talk about your showroom and how it's set up.
Absolutely. Did you want to show some of the pictures?
Yes. I'll
Okay.
go ahead and.
So I'm actually sitting in the room that's on the left right now. I'm sitting in this chair facing the other way. So to my back is, I keep a very simple little showroom because I do have a few local people that come in. This picture on the right shows some of my library books. I've always been a collector of gem and jewelry books and design books and all that. So I have a little case here that I use to keep some of the jewelry that I show. And then if you want to move on to the next slide. Okay. So then this is, I have a 3-room suite. So that we were in the first one. This is my workshop area. So you can see my rolling mill, my polishing, and then here's my workbench. I use 2 workbenches. I have a nice, very lucky, I have a nice big heavy piece of oak that I had custom milled to keep my anvils and hammering stuff, keeps my neighbors from going crazy from all the ding, ding, dinging. Because I do a lot of forging work. And just for fun, I like to do, I like cutting turquoise and making turquoise jewelry. So this is a piece of Sleeping Beauty turquoise that I did one time. That's just kind of fun. So that is and also back in the 70s when I was first making jewelry, this was something that I did, which was like a nugget turquoise bracelet that I still wear and still love it. So then on the lower left, this is kind of where this is part of my gem lab right here. And also I'll bring clients in and we'll evaluate gemstones. At this point, you can see my scales and measuring tools. And then this wall is all CounterSketch renders. You know, you can render, you can print these things on a nice 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I use a program called InDesign to quickly make the name and the copyright notice and things like that. You just drag them in and it does it really quick. And that's what I use on my website. And then to the right, I think we already saw that slide. So if you can, next slide, Allison. Okay, so I guess that's it. Yeah, and then these are some recent designs showing. I mean, CounterSketch just does a beautiful job rendering the metals and the colors of the gems. I mean, it looks like they're sitting there. That's 3 separate renderings put together on one. Actually, I use that on one of my signatures for email. Okay, so can you see the render setup? So like I said, choose your defaults. I use this one and this one and this. And then when I save it as default, and also it's the render resolution. And so when you do that, what you want to do is you want to keep your render image on the screen. Keep it about the size that you want. You know, you're just you have to experiment a little bit with it. I mean, when you roll your mouse, there's certain sizes, you know, you can kind of tell after you do it for a few times and you'll see. Well, one thing that's kind of fun to experiment with too is this one right here too, lay flat, which is kind of an interesting, I sometimes do that too. So let's, I'm gonna close, let's see, I'm gonna close that up. So now you can see, how it's going to look on a tabletop. So when you render it, it looks pretty cool because you can get with that setup, you can get it's a really nice a nice way to do it. And the ray tracing, you know, picks up the details from the ring on the reflective material and it just looks real nice.
That's very beautiful.
I don't know if that helps. You got to remember to undo it. I've never played with this toggle render. This is a new feature, I think. If Heather's on the phone, we got to talk about that one too later. But so I hope that answered your question. The best thing I can do is you just have to. It's just a matter of consistency when you do your. I like it around like this size right here, or maybe 1 click up. It just depends, you know. If you're going to group them together, you want to make sure you have them the same size. So we could go back to, you can take over the screen now, Allie.
Well, thank you so much for showing that.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you you coming today and you sharing your designs. You have absolutely beautiful designs.
Thank you.
So I do have another question for you. So
absolutely.
How long in a day do you usually use CounterSketch?
It depends on what projects I'm working on. I mean, I typically like to work on CounterSketch like in the morning. I'm fortunate that, being a private jeweler, I can make my own schedule, so I'm not a slave to the store anymore. Thank God. I did that for over 40 years, being at the store from 9 to 6 every day, 6 days a week. So this is a real refreshing change. So I find that I have a home studio and I work off a laptop, so I can basically work wherever I am. So I tend to work at home in the morning. We typically go to the gym and then I come back and I'll do some CounterSketch or Matrix for whatever projects there are that I'm doing. So it just depends on what my workload is. If I have some free time, I like to design stock in CounterSketch. It's kind of fun. You take some stones you have and think up some things like to do with it.
And
I would say that if you want to get good at CounterSketch, what I suggest is you do is to make it available so that you have a set time during the week. Put it on your calendar. This CounterSketch training. I'm going to do it. From whatever time works best for you. Whether it's morning, evening, or night, or lunch hour, or whatever. Keep at it. Keep trying new things. Figure out ways. If you can do it, attend Heather's seminars. If you can't get the seminar, you can go back and you can watch it, which is what I'm going to do this week. Actually, is watch her November presentation, because it's available for 30 days after she does it. So and then it goes away. So you got to kind of mark your calendar, and then you go in and you can take the seminar.
So Peter, we have another question. Do you still use Matrix for anything, or has CounterSketch become the primary software that you use for designing?
Well, as I said earlier in the beginning, we got Matrix first many years ago, and its early derivation, whatever the word is. This last year, I bought Matrix Gold. I mean, I've been using CounterSketch now for about 5 years, I guess. And I decided that I wanted to learn Matrix Gold, so I bought myself a new laptop and I bought the program. I figured I would use this year to learn it. But I found that it's, Matrix Gold there's a lot to learn. I mean, if you look at CounterSketch's screen and you think it's complex, wait until you see Matrix Gold. But it's an elegant interface. I mean, it's just real powerful. I mean, CounterSketch is powerful too, but it's a little faster to do stuff. So I find that my goal is to do both. There's certain things that work better in CounterSketch, and other things work better in Matrix Gold. The advantage with CounterSketch, the advantage with CounterSketch is that you have Stellar backing you up all the way on it. So when you submit a file, I mean, their validators check everything over, make sure everything's going to work good. And then if you decide to proceed, they do a flawless job. With Matrix Gold, you can do something similar, but you can also use other service bureaus to send the file to. And I've experimented a little bit with that just to kind of see how that works. It just gives you the flexibility to be able to do. I mean, I sort of see being a CAD/CAM designer as sort of like my end game. So it's I can do it wherever I want, and I have clients all over the place. Between email and texting and phone calls and FaceTime and webinars and all this, you can be anywhere and make beautiful stuff. And so that's kind of where I'm
happy, right?
Pardon me?
I said it made customers happy at the right time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do have a question, and I'll go ahead and answer it. How many people can access one CounterSketch software license? Sarah, so the way that CounterSketch works is you can install it on more than one computer, but you can only run it one at a time.
Yeah, and when we had multiple stores, we had, it used to be that you could buy one license first and then there was a discounted rate for the second one. I don't know if they're still doing that, but so it's a little less expensive if you have multiple locations, and then you can get around it that way.
Yes,
I just
and definitely.
Yeah, if you just have it on a laptop, you know, you can bring it with you wherever you are. So that's what I do. Yeah, that way you don't have to uninstall and reinstall the license to get it, you know, to have multiple people use it.
Most definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Peter. And Sarah, whenever we're done with the webinar, I'll definitely get you over to your solution specialist so they can talk with you further in regards to pricing and on multiple computers and any specific questions that you do have. So